So we are delighted to be here and to be able to talk about our topic. We have briefly touched this topic before on the last talk. It's metadata, and today we want to talk a bit about how a group of volunteer enthusiasts successfully developed a metadata profile that is not just only exist, but is practically in use. In doing so, we are not only briefly present the results of the work, but also show the processes and tools that made this work possible. So please note that this work is not completed, but has been ongoing for many years and will hopefully continue for many more years. Given the limited time, we cannot dive too deeply into the details, and therefore invite you to continue the discussion here in this web forum. First, we'll address the question of where such a group can be situated to work successfully over such a long work period. In our case, it's the KIM, in English, the Competence Center for Interoperable Metadata. KIM sees itself as an information and communication platform for metadata users and developers. It operates within association structures and is therefore not dependent on specific and time-limited project funds. KIM hosts workshops and committee work takes place, and one of these committees is the OER group moderated by Adrian and me. This group brings together a mix of people who work in both higher education and school sectors. Now we'll talk about what exactly is being developed in this group. The AMB, it's in German the Allgemeines Metadatenprofil für Bildungsressourcen, and in English the Common Metadata Profile for Educational Resources, is a specification for describing digital educational resources with structured metadata. This specification is predominantly based on attributes from schema.org, but adds specialized control vocabularies in the form of SCOs to these in some places. In this way, it follows the LOUD principle. LOUD is an acronym, linked, open, usable data, and by that it can be used by almost everyone. All the results and tools are publicly available and can be freely used. Details about the structure of the properties and the use of vocabularies can be found, for example, on the specification website that you can see here in the screenshot. And the publicly available JSON schema helps with technical implementation. The SCOs vocabularies are also freely accessible on the web and made accessible for public use with the SCOhub platform. In the screenshot, we see the resource types on the left and the classification of university subjects on the right. The latter is regularly created by the Federal Statistical Office in Germany and made available to the public by the group as linked open data in the form of a SCOs vocabulary. Additionally, other vocabularies have been created in the past, for instance, the resource type and school subjects specifically for the school sector. One important thing is here to note, the group didn't simply make up all these vocabularies, but rather developed them in consultation with subject matter experts, especially if there are no experts for the subjects already a member of the group. One might now wonder why not simply use schema.org directly to mark up educational resources. The main reason is simply the fact that schema.org is very broad and covers many, many entities. Educational resources are included, but also much, much more. Additionally, schema.org doesn't use specific vocabularies, but at best gives recommendations to do so. That makes sense if you think of schema.org as a generic set of properties, but it's not particularly useful for less experienced people and institutions who want to use interoperable data structures for their use cases. Furthermore, schema.org can be serialized in many ways, and we wanted to focus only and solely on stable JSON-LD. The approach here is therefore to build a specification that uses schema.org and additionally specifies everything that schema.org itself leaves open, thus lowering the barriers to use. So the AMB can thus be seen as a help to describe one's own OER with structured metadata without having to deal with the complexity and diversity of schema.org. The years of work are already bearing fruits. There are already various platforms that provide AMB as an exchange format, thus increasing interoperability. ORCID, the OER search index, uses AMB internally as an application profile, but also provides AMB data as embedded JSON-LD and via API for each resource. Zerlo, a free learning platform, a German learning platform, provides AMB-compatible data in their GraphQL API. Platforms like eTeaching.org embed JSON-LD in the HTML pages of their learning resources, making it easier for search engines to crawl. Aggregators and search indices like ORCID, VLAN Online, and the national Mein Bildungsraum, the German Mein Bildungsraum, recommend AMB as an exchange format, and in the case of ORCID, also provide direct input masks for the AMB metadata. If we know of platforms that use AMB in any form, we publish this information on the implementation page that is linked here in the presentation to show widespread AMB has become. This can be a particular valuable help for people who are still looking for suitable data profiles. And with that, I will hand over to Adrian, who will now tell you more about the community work.
We now understand what AMB is, but how was it developed? I will say something about this. So the group exists for some time now. It was initiated in 2013, and from the beginning on, there were participants from the higher ed sector and from libraries, from the library sector, but also from the school sector. So it was a diverse group. We started with drafting recommendations in a wiki or Google Docs, but not finalized anything there, and it wasn't that such a good process that we commissioned in 2019 Open Culture Consulting to set up some tools and processes for professional standardizing process. And then I think one thing that made AMB start as a development was that we actually had an implementation around with the OER search index that was in need of an index schema, and we thought we were also involved in this effort, and we thought, why not start with creating a community profile that others can use, and then use it as an index profile for our application as well. So first starting with people and referencing, quoting the slide from Sarvan from last year's SWIP. So standards are made by those who show up. Basically you need people to create standards, and that's the base. You need to convene a number of interested volunteers who want to actively participate. Then another challenge is you need some continuity, because these are volunteers, they don't have much time, and you will only be successful if you have continuity in your efforts. And So what were the motivations for joining the group? So that people would come. We did a small survey with participants from the group and those that have already left, and there were, I think, 18 people answered questions, and what motivated them to join the group was the professional exchange and networking, and seeking synergies with others, and avoiding duplication of work, and to making systems interoperable and contributing to open initiatives. And I think it worked out, so because a lot of people joined by recommendation from others, and many of the participants in the group have been actively participating over a longer time period, over many years, and they also tend to regularly attend the monthly group meetings. Here's one example I would like to share with you, especially. It's from Zerlo.org. It's a platform for where you can learn in different subjects for school, up from, I think, is it from first to class to 13th class in Germany, I think. And yeah, they received some public money for a project to open up their to develop an open API for their data and the metadata, their resources. And they thought, yeah, why not use this part of this public money to improve the effort that's already going on at Kim, developing the AMB and then using it for our API. So and that's what they did, and I think that's great when there's projects that are finite in time, contribute to such more longer ongoing efforts like Kim, and help develop and improve the standards we all use in our shared infrastructure. Okay, so what process and tools are we using? I already referred to the Stöber specs project. Yeah, and it had two main goals: to develop the basis for professional development of standards or specifications, and to minimize barriers of entry for potential collaborators. And that's what came out in this project was some kind of standardization kit we are still using and have been updating a bit in the meantime. Yeah, so we are mainly working on GitHub with issues and pull requests and Git-based workflows, and have a Kanban there. We use then respec, that's from a W3C. Created in the W3C to publish HTML specifications. We have a adjusted version for our use case and publish our specifications with it. Then we have ScoHub. That's a software where you can create and maintain SCOS vocabularies with Git and GitHub, and have some automatic workflows to publish them on the web as a static site. And yeah, we're using for our monthly meetings, we are using Hedgehog pads for jotting down the agenda and the notes. And yeah, for I think a year now, we have been using another discourse forum, metadaten.community, for communication, scheduling events and posting the finalized minutes. Okay, let's wrap this up. So here's an overview of success factors we have identified. So it's good to have some kind of group that is independent of any institution or project and is there, and it doesn't have to provide much. So it's basically what Kim provided in the beginning was a mailing list and a wiki. That was enough and to start with. You need continuity, as I already said. I think we had a monthly meeting this year in each month. We didn't skip any of the month, even in the summertime. Yeah, and we are maximizing openness and transparency by discussing everything on GitHub in open issues or on the forum. So there's nothing going on behind closed doors. Yeah, and that was also from the survey. What people like about the group, why they are interested in actively participating, is because we have provide a collegial and friendly environment, and have lots of people with competency and technical expertise. Yeah, and we have common goals. We identify them, we prioritize them together, and work on them. Also, what's important is that you have the right tools. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to develop standards in Google Docs, I would say, for example. Yeah, and what's really important is to couple the development of a specification with its implementation, to have an application where you testing it in real life. Yeah, here's some challenges and lessons learned. Yeah, what we learned about the educational resources area is metadata is around in many places, also there, but it's not natural for librarians to work on open educational resources. But it became clear that librarians can and should contribute to good metadata practices in other areas like education. And I think both sides benefited from this. What we've learned is that building on schema.org is not always easy. For one thing, it's not easy to contribute to schema.org. We had at least one issue where we wanted to extend schema.org, but I think by now it's even closed because nothing happened. But although there was a lot of activity and a lot of other people saying, yeah, this would make sense, it didn't work out. And another thing is, it's not always clear. We were not always on the same page regarding what constitutes schema.org conformance, because you have the schema.org validator from Google, and people think, yeah, if there's an error, you're not conformant with schema.org, but it tends to be more strict than the actual specification in different aspects. So, and one challenge is, when people left the group, it was mostly about time resources that were missing. So, yeah, that's a general problem. And yeah, one thing that happened where it's a very specific area we are working in on open educational resources metadata profile, and we did this open and transparent work and invited people to come and work with us. But in the end, even there was in Germany another parallel approach where people put a lot of time into developing another OER metadata profile that with a lot of overlap with AMB. So in the end, I can just say, if you are interested in participating in the group, you can join the forum at Metadata community if you are German speaking, or if you are interested in some kind of internationalized AMB. We could talk about this if you would like to put some resources into this. Yeah, thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Manuel and Adrian. First of all, we seem to have a scaling issue of the forum, so the chat is partly down, which is on the one hand very flattering, but something that we need to solve. I was also trying to keep an eye on the Fediverse, on the several Slack channels, and on any communication channel that I could find. So if there's any questions and the chat is back up, then you can ask them now. Otherwise, you can ask them later when we fix this. I have one question. So this is mainly focused on people who create open educational resource platforms, right? It's not geared towards the more general public of educators and teachers, because I think the latter would maybe be a bit still reluctant to use stuff like APIs and schemas and stuff.
Yeah.
So this is more like for the multiplicators. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's for technical people who are implementing platforms who are doing some data modeling, maybe, or sometimes there are also people who are recording metadata for OER or so. But not for general educators. Yeah.
Okay, and there's no plans to expand this to a larger group, maybe. Okay.
No.
No? No. Then, since I can't see any other questions, I also think the question of if and how to use schema.org is an interesting one, also from the perspective of different communities, like also BibFrame and DCMI. But I think that is an excellent question to be discussed in the forum. So thank you both again.
I see a question from Jakob in the chat. Yeah.
Great. I don't see the chat right.
Does AMB imply creation of a semantic OER knowledge graph, and who's going to create it? Yeah, I don't know. When we started with this whole SWIP thing, there was the talk about linked open data, and we built it together on the web, and the graph was on the web. And I would say this is what we are about. We want to share common practices on how to publish your OER metadata on the web as linked data, and then the knowledge graph will emerge on the web, and you can harvest data like OER search index does, and work with this, for example. And yeah, and maybe you could say that the OER search index already is a knowledge graph of open educational resources. Yeah.
So in essence, if we want such a graph, we need to add to it ourselves also.